This is the Magnum Vertex, and it's sort of a hybrid e-bike that blends the features of a commuter bike with those of a hardtail mountain bike. I'm a big fan of this bike. I'm excited to share what makes it awesome, so let's take a ride and talk about it. Hey everyone, I'm John with Electric Bike Report. If you're looking for a great e-bike or you just think they're cool, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon down below. So the Magnum Vertex is a class 2 and 3 e-bike with a 500 watt mid-drive motor made by Ananda. It has a throttle that's limited to 20 miles per hour and it offers pedal assisted speeds of up to 28. With that combination, this bike becomes capable for use as a commuter, in addition to being a solid bike for fire roads, double track, or maybe even some light single track trails. The main features that give it the ability to handle off-road environments like those are, first and foremost, that motor. It's designed specifically for mountain bikes and cargo bikes, so it has the power to move this 75-pound bike and a rider very comfortably. But then there's also the 27.5 inch by 2.8 inch CST Patrol tires with a super beefy tread that can really grip into the dirt. The suspension fork is a great addition too. It's the XCM 34 Boost model from Suntour with a full 130 millimeters of travel. The Vertex uses a torque sensor for its motor. So in my testing, the bike felt really adaptive and responsive. It gave me a substantial amount of pedal assistance, even in its lowest setting, eco mode, and it kicked out even more if I pedaled harder or faster. I took this bike out on some rocky desert trails for some testing, in addition to our usual paved paths, and it felt very much at home out there just because of that responsiveness. One of the other primary features that stood out to me was just the overall comfort level and how that was balanced out with good control. The bike uses 720 millimeter handlebars with ergonomic grips, and I found those to be comfortable for street or off-road riding. They're a little short compared to what you might find on a dedicated mountain bike, but they're wider than I've seen on most commuter bikes. So again, a good balance between those two categories. The 48 volt battery here has a 15 amp hour capacity or 720 watt hours, which is pretty substantial in relation to the motor. It meets and exceeds the ratio between motor watts and battery watt hours that we typically like to see. The battery uses Samsung cells and it is removable, but it blends really nicely into the frame, and of course it's also painted to match. There's a 10-speed micro shift Advent X drivetrain on the bike with a 42-tooth chainring, a KMC chain, and a huge range of cogs on the cassette. It's an 11 to 48-tooth cassette that's made specifically for mountain bikes, so in the low gears, it's great for climbing, and the high end makes it easy to pedal at high speeds. The brake system is the Tektro E350 hydraulic system with 2 piston calipers and 180 millimeter rotors. There's a dual LED headlight on the bike that I really liked, but if you're planning to ride on the road a lot, I might suggest getting a larger tail light. There is a battery powered tail light that clips to the underside of the saddle, but it's pretty small and the light isn't super visible. I really liked the saddle though. This is actually my preferred shape, and it had enough support that I was still comfortable even after like an hour on the bike. With the commuter potential here, I was happy to see that Magnum offers some optional accessories to make that a little more practical. There are fenders and a cargo rack that can be added separately. And speaking of adding things separately, the seat tube on the bike is 30.4 millimeters, so it is compatible with a bunch of dropper posts if you wanted to add one of those to make the bike a bit more better suited for trails. I thought the cockpit layout was generally good. It's pretty simple. There's a standard Magnum branded LCD black and white display in the center. I liked that the control panel was minimal, but easy to reach and adjust from the left grip. I liked the shifter on the right bar as well. It felt very good in terms of ergonomics. The bike comes with its throttle lever right next to the shifter on that right bar, but I actually moved it on our bike. I found it to be much more practical on the left bar so that I didn't have to go back and forth between the throttle and the shifter. Overall, a really solid package of components here that all worked very well. So let's get into our test results and talk about the bike's actual performance. After 3 segments where we pedaled the Vertex up to 20 miles per hour, hit the brakes, and then measured its stopping distance, we calculated an average distance of 23 feet and 4 inches. That result is definitely on the high end, but it is still within the range that we consider safe and effective. Excellent stopping power is super important to have when you're riding off-road though, so we'd like to see at least the option for an upgrade to a 4-piston hydraulic system, possibly with larger rotors to disperse heat better. The forks on the Vertex can accommodate rotors up to 203 millimeters, so I think it just makes sense to have that option. To get the big picture, I combined our data for all of the mountain bikes and commuters we've tested for comparison. The average between those 2 categories is currently 20 feet and 1 inch, so that shows how far beyond the average our results with this bike were. But I do want to point out that when you're moving on an e-bike, 3 feet goes by in the blink of an eye. So that's why we're okay with where things ended up, even if there's still room for improvement. Let's take a ride on the Vertex so you can see the results of our speed test in each of the bike's pedal assist settings. All right, I'm here doing a speed test on the Magnum Vertex. Pedaling with no motor assistance here, kind of right around 11.5 miles per hour. And let's bump it up to eco mode, where I feel that motor engage right away. Can shift up a little bit. And climbing up to right around 15 miles per hour in eco mode. Let's say 15.5 actually. All right, we'll bump up to tour mode. Shift up again. Pedaling is extremely easy. You know, I'm moving my legs a little faster, but the pressure that I'm actually applying is decreased. Going right about 19.5 miles per hour in this setting. So 19.5 for tour mode. Let's bump up to sport mode, where again, just super smooth and easy. A little bit of a delay on the shifter there. We are going right around 22 miles per hour here. Let's bump up to sport mode, or sorry, turbo mode from sport mode. Shift up to the highest gear here, where we are cruising around 25. Need to slow down a little bit for this curve. But let's jump it up into boost mode and see what this thing can really do. Really cooking now. So we are up to about 26.5. in boost mode. All right, let's talk about that. So overall, I was really happy with the distribution of power between the 5 pedal assist settings. The fact that the 500 watt motor uses a torque sensor means that the speeds the bike is capable of in each of its settings isn't really limited. But with a moderate level of effort, I measured about 11.5 miles per hour with the pedal assist system totally deactivated. In eco mode, that jumped up to about 15.5 miles per hour. then right around 19.5 in tour mode, and about 22 in sport mode. I hit 25 miles per hour in turbo mode, and then again with a moderate level of effort to really take advantage of that torque sensor, I hit 26.5 in boost mode. I never actually reached the class 3 maximum of 28 miles per hour, but I'm actually okay with that considering the balance that this bike is going for, and lighter riders might be able to get moving a little faster anyway. When I kept a more casual pedal cadence, I noticed it feeling a little ghost pedally above 20 miles per hour. Not really a surprise considering the 42-tooth chainring. A larger chainring would help to straighten that out, but that could also make uphill or off-road riding quite a bit less enjoyable, so I think the current setup is fine. And I also think it reinforces the fact that with the torque sensor, this bike wants you to work a little bit. Overall, I've got to say that I think the motor's power and its acceleration were both fantastic on this bike. When I was pedaling, it responded right away with plenty of oomph to add to what I was putting in, and when using the throttle, it was great to be able to make use of the bike's gearing. The max speed I was able to reach with the throttle was about 19.5 miles per hour, and while our contact at Magnum said the throttle is limited at 20, there again, riders who are lighter than I am might be able to go a little faster. I was very happy with the results of our range test. Magnum advertises a range of 25 to 50 miles with the Vertex, and we were able to exceed both of those figures. We measured between about 31 and 58 miles in our testing, so while the difference wasn't huge, it's still great to see. On one hand, it means the brand gives conservative and, more importantly, achievable estimates, and on the other, it means the motor and battery are pretty efficient, and that is a natural benefit of mid-drive motors. That efficiency is backed up by some math. I mentioned earlier about the ratio of motor watts and battery watt hours that we typically look for. With a 500 watt motor and a 720 watt hour battery, we expected our range test in boost mode to take about an hour and 25 minutes, but we got an extra 20 minutes or so on the bike, which is a pretty significant increase of 23%. Our test in eco mode, where we got the 58-mile result, took almost 5 hours, and that was still going about 13 miles per hour on average. So if you're out cruising at a casual pace and speed, that's some serious time and distance you can get out of the battery here before you'll need to plug it in. As with every e-bike we test, we took the Magnum Vertex to Hellhole Trail for our hill test, where Justin tested it with its throttle and when pedaling in boost mode. Let's go check out how the bike did for it.
Okay, so now I'm on the Magnum Vertex 500 watt mid-drive with a throttle. And so I've shifted to the easiest gear to see if it can make it up this hill. The throttle's not crazy punchy, which to be honest I like on a bike this style, except for especially people who are taking off-road on a mid-drive. Throttles are a little bit different, so I like the fact that they have a throttle. But just remember, when you're climbing hills, you do have to shift to an easier gear. But this actually might make it. So I'm right about 9 miles an hour, and you can see, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but it's saying it's kicking out 900 watts of power, so that might actually end up being the max wattage on this. So this is a pretty extreme test on this. But yeah, it's actually looks like it might make this up. So I'm gonna let you listen to the motor through this next section so you can see what it sounds like. This is the last steep section of this super steep hill. So you definitely hear that motor working. As I shifted to that easiest gear, it's just spinning, you know, at a high rate. You can hear it more. Nothing annoying, I would say. And I was able to climb through that section about 7-8 miles an hour. So yeah, this is gonna make it up where I did not expect it. So that going, you know, boosting that to that 800-900 watts, you know, obviously gives it enough kind of torque to climb this hill on throttle. So I'm gonna say good job to the Magnum Vertex on the throttle only test, and we'll see how it does on the pedal test coming up. Okay, so I'm on the Magnum Vertex 500 watt mid-drive motor, and we're doing the pedal test here. So obviously on the pedal test, how much I put in, but I am going kind of like a try to on all, or just a nice casual pace where I could go for a while, talk to people like I'm talking to you now. So far, pretty good. Right about 9 miles an hour through here. Good responsiveness climbing the hill from the motor. Good feel. The sound, you can hear it a little bit, but nothing extraordinary. I'll kind of shut up now so you can listen to the motor yourself. So 10, 11 miles an hour through that last section. And overall, I'd say it's a fairly powerful mid-drive motor on this, that 500 watts versus like 350 or some of the other ones. Definitely is gonna get you up the hill when you're pedaling, and you really don't have to struggle much. I shifted a couple times, but that's all I had to do. So I'm anxious to see the results.
As you could see, the Vertex did a really solid job in this test. With a throttle, Justin measured 1 minute and 47 seconds to the top of the hill with an average speed of 10.1 miles per hour. In boost mode, he was able to pedal up much faster since he was doing some of the work, and that took him 1 minute and 23 seconds at roughly 13.1 miles per hour. Compared to similar bikes with 500 watt mid-drive motors that we've tested, the results we had with the Vertex were pretty average, but average is good. Justin clearly didn't have to work very hard when pedaling, and even with the throttle, he was able to keep decent speeds throughout. So I think that shows the motor packs a really good amount of power for the size and weight of this bike. The Vertex showed us that it can climb just about any hill, so I'd say it passed this test with flying colors. To help you get a better idea of what it's like to ride the Magnum Vertex, let's take it out for one more spin and talk about its ride quality. In terms of ride quality, the Magnum Vertex here is pretty unique. It is sort of a hybrid bike, so it blends elements of a mountain or sort of cross-country bike with a commuter, and because of that you get sort of a moderate forward lean here, not a ton of adjustability. There is some in the seat post, but with a standard style stem, you don't get the full range of adjustment that you would with like a quick adjust stem. So your reach distance is kind of set where it is, but you get these nice 720 millimeter wide handlebars, really good control with that. And in combination with the tires, solid handling on and off road. The tires are 27.5 inch by 2.8 inch. They're made by CST, and they've got a lot of really chunky tread for riding off road, but it does just fine, as you can see, on paved surfaces as well. The width there, you get actually quite a lot of stability, which is really nice. So kind of in the middle in terms of stability, but it's definitely appreciated. And then you have just a front suspension fork, no rear suspension on this bike. It's a hardtail. The suspension fork is made by Suntour, and it's got a full 130 millimeters of travel, so pretty nice there. Not going to be wanting to do a lot of drops or anything on this bike, but it's going to feel good, for going downhill. And then, of course, with the motor, you have a 500 watt mid-drive from Ananda, which is a brand I'm not really that familiar with, but it does use a torque sensor. So, as you apply more pressure to the pedals, you get more power from the motor, and you can hit pretty fast speeds even in low PAS settings because of that. So the bike really responds to your level of pedaling. And then, of course, you have 5 levels of assistance to choose from. So let's talk about those things a little bit more. Thanks, Past John. So Magnum says that the Vertex can fit riders between 5'5" and 6'2". We found that the geometry was a little awkward for riders at the extreme ends of that spectrum. The standover height was a bit tall for short riders, and the reach was a little cramped for tall riders. It worked for the most part, but we wouldn't mind seeing some different frame sizes in the future to give a better fit for both tall and short riders. I'm 5'11", and I found the Vertex to be very comfortable. Its more upright geometry felt more like a commuter than a mountain bike to me, but I think it was, again, a pretty decent blend. Again, just good control, good handling. The suspension fork had a really adaptive feel, and it handled some pretty rough terrain very comfortably. The saddle got a bit bumpy without a rear suspension, but that's no surprise. The motor felt absolutely great. The fact that it's a mid-drive with a torque sensor made it feel almost like a non-electric bike, but I was able to pedal way faster and climb hills way easier than I'd ever be able to do just with my own leg power. That was a pretty amazing feeling, and it's exactly what you want on a bike you can ride just about anywhere. I think the Vertex was great all around, and it managed to successfully walk a pretty fine line between a commuter and a mountain bike. So I'd give it a solid A when it comes to ride quality. I was really looking forward to testing the Vertex. I had high hopes for this bike, and it completely lived up to my expectations. I can very comfortably say that this is one of my favorite bikes that I've tested. I think it definitely has its limitations, but I also think it did a great job of balancing the features of two very different types of bike. Is this a good option for serious, dedicated mountain bikers? Well, they might prefer something a little more dialed in for that specific type of riding, but for someone who enjoys the feel of a mountain bike and who might want to hit the dirt on the weekends after riding to work Monday through Friday, I think that's a perfect fit. This is a great entry-level hybrid bike with lots of flexibility in where it can be used. The points of critique I have are pretty minimal. The current brake system is decent, but I'd like to see the option to upgrade to a 4-piston hydraulic system with larger rotors. And while the sizing of the bike worked pretty well for me personally, some of our testers on the shorter and taller side didn't have the best fit, so we'd like to see an expanded number of frame sizes. Otherwise, this is one of those bikes that I'd say, if it appeals to you, I don't think you'll be disappointed, and we'll leave a link to Magnum's website in the video description so you can pick one up. This thing is a ton of fun, it's fast, it's powerful, it feels great to ride, and it can do just about anything. I'm gonna wrap it up there though. Thanks for sticking around. We'll leave another link in the video description so you can check out my written review for more information. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and please let us know what you think of the Vertex in the comments. That's all for today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Magnum Vertex.